What's going on, everybody? Welcome to You're Not the Audience. This is a weekly live show where I break down brands, products, and subcultures that stand out by not appealing to everyone. And oh, we've got a good one for that today. I'm Calvin, creative director at Parliament, and for those who don't know, Parliament is a brand transformation agency. That's what we call ourselves, and we help brands that are facing big changes, and we help them become the next version of themselves with strategy, positioning, identity, messaging, all that good stuff. But this stream is just talking about brand overall, and we're going to have a fun one today. This is a unique, specific interest of mine today. So, oh sweet, we already got Lone Archivist in the chat here. Let's go vector heart design discussion. Oh yeah, we're gonna talk a lot about vector heart today. That's one of the names for the style that we're gonna be talking about today. So, structure of the episode. Normal week, we'll start with just a little tiny bit of news and obsessions from the Parliament world. And then we'll just do a deep dive into our subject today, end with some Q&A random chat at the end. And feel free to toss anything in chat along the way. How's everybody doing today? Everyone doing good? Any fun things going on in your lives right now? It's like officially summer here in Portland, so it's been hard to focus and not just want to be outside all day. All right, let's get into it. So so quick little intro before we do some nerd. Oh, going to a cider festival later today. And thanks. Yeah, glad you're looking forward to the stream. Going to a cider fest. You know, I'm a cider fan, since on the side of Parliament, I do a lot of work for a cider company just outside of Portland called Son of Man Cider. So I've got a little bit of a cider nerd side to myself as well. And they're good. Everyone, try Son of Man. It's a Basque style cider. It's funky and weird. Give it a shot. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Wipeout, maybe the best branded video game ever. But before we get into that, I'm going to just talk about a couple little things from the Parliament world. I guess important one. Yesterday was Chris, our founder, Chris Erickson. It was his birthday. So if you know Chris Erickson, hunt him down on the internet, tell him happy birthday. I believe he's 29 years old again. Isn't that the joke? I think he went to Hele Pele, our local tiki spot last night, which is like, if you know Chris, you know he has a deep love for exotica and the Polynesian pop world. So other fun things, I think I've talked about this in the last week or two. We do our annual golf tournament that we're all very bad at. We're all terrible golfers. We just do it for fun. But I can show you some fun stuff here. So last year, nope, that's not what I want. You don't need email. Oh, that's what we're going to talk about. Here we go. So last year here, we just took this classic old imagery of a rabbit and used it as the mark for our annual golf tournament called the Caddyshack Tournament. And it was just a fun thing. This is pulled from CSA Images, which, if you don't know CSA, best collection of like archival stock classic ad art and everything. It's great. So look up CSA Images. And we asked our friend Brett Parsons, who has done some work for us on some secret projects that aren't announced yet. We asked him to reimagine the rabbit. So in like the span of a few days, he sends us these incredible sketches. We asked him to do a full body and a head illustration. We picked our favorites, and he immediately sent back some kind of tightened up sketches. So now we've got this rabbit that's a little mischievous, and we're gonna then take this, put it on a bunch of swag, so we have goofy looking stuff for our golf tournament. And I just love Brett's work. It's just, he nails that, like, good expressive line style, good expressive faces, very fun and goofy. And so The important thing that we're missing now for this character is if anybody has name ideas for what we should call this little mascot, let me know, because I don't know, something Scottish, bunny related, rabbit related, I don't know. So if anybody's got any ideas for what we should call this little bunny, throw them in chat. I guess if we pick yours, I'll hunt you down and send you some swag, some nerdy golf swag. So okay, let's get into it today. So, and I think some of the best names we've seen, like a bunch of like Bogey Bunny. That was a good name for him. Oh yeah, Fuel and Tank. Putz or Putz? Oh, Putz is good. Maybe Putz Bunny. Maybe it needs to be like McPutz. that's his last name, McPutz, for, you know, the Scottish vibe. All right, let's talk why I think Wipeout is the best brand world ever. A little bit of a clickbaity title today, but you know, it's the internet. What can you do? Okay, so step back. Today I want to talk about the 1995 PlayStation video game. It was on a lot of other things. I think it was even on the Sega Saturn. Is a game called Wipeout. It's a racing game. It was, at the time, it was like the fastest, most intense racing game to ever exist. It was 1995, PlayStation 1, with its low poly, low pixel aesthetic. Looks awesome. And Wipeout was really special because it created this insanely deep, futuristic sci-fi world through the use of corporate aesthetics, a lot of cultural remixing and appropriating, and a lot of subvertising, which I'll talk about subvertising later and what that is. And just at the time, there was nothing like it. And there was nothing that went as deep into its branded world. Like, no other game went as deep into that world as they did. And it kind of then became the standard for how to do branded worlds in video games. And I just think it was really unique. So, and kind of why that's important is, you know, last week, this is kind of an extension of last week's episode where we talked a lot about, to move beyond basic brand building, it's kind of helpful to look beyond just the walls of your organization or your brand and really look deep into a subculture, find history, find lore, and find ways to kind of infuse the stories and grit of that subculture and its spirit into the core of your brand. So that's a really good way to kind of like remix and adopt some kind of like history that might not actually exist in the brand that you're doing, is like see how you merge it with something else. And so yeah, like I said, title is a little bit clickbaity. Best brand ever, or best brand world ever, maybe, I don't know. For me, it was really important because I was 10 years old in 1995, and I just remember nothing else looking like it. And this game and the design agency behind it were kind of like the vanguard and thought leaders behind this look, this like 90s techno UK rave look that is kind of now having another moment in the light right now. It's definitely has come back. And the thing that I think they just did really well, which was unique for that time, was like, it wasn't just a brand, it wasn't just a game. It felt like a completely invented alternate history. Well, I guess an alternate future. And the way it remixed culture, yeah, all hail the Republic. Yep, we'll talk about Designers Republic in just a second. Designers Republic was the agency behind the look. And they're incredible. They're still around. They've been around for like 40 years. And I think just like what's really unique to like keep in mind during this is like the level of specificity they went into in every detail throughout the brand for just this racing game is like what actually made us fall in love with it. So it might just be a futuristic version of our current capitalist hellscape, but they went into so much detail we were able to kind of like find ourselves and belong in it. So, all right, what is Wipeout? Let me switch over here. So, for anyone who doesn't know, this is Wipeout. This is the cover for the PlayStation game, just called Wipeout. This is the sequel, Wipeout 2097. Fun story about the title for 2097. In the US, it was actually called Wipeout XL because the game publishing company was afraid that Americans would be too stupid to not understand that 2097 was the sequel. And so they called it XL instead. Good job, America. So Wipeout was a racing game, this futuristic high-speed racing game. And here, I'll just play this. This gives you a complete idea of the aesthetic. Every single aspect of it was branded. The race type, the teams, their like factions, and everything had this like level of branding added into it. But the thing that was really unique about it was what would I say? TBH, he wasn't wrong. No, he wasn't wrong. So the big thing that was really unique about this game specifically was that how much it took from the UK rave scene and techno scene. You know, and they actually, all those bands actually showed up on the soundtrack for this game. The soundtrack was like the defining like atmosphere and like direction for everything. See, you're seeing video now of like, this is what the game actually looked like. I think this is Wipeout XL or 2097. This came out in 1996, 1997. And so it looks a little bit nicer than the first one. But so, you know, you've got bands in here like the Chemical Brothers, the Prodigy, Orbital, Left Field, all these really essential bands that then blew up. And this game was kind of what brought a lot of that music to the masses for a lot of people. And it uses this aesthetic that just fuses a lot of like visual noise with negative space in a really nice way. Lone Archivist already said in the chat that like this style is often referred to as vector heart, or it's also called metal heart. But to me, it's just the Designers Republic style. And I'll show you some Designers Republic work in just a minute more. So why do I think this is some of the best brand work ever? I mean, in the game space, Wipeout was the first video game to use commercial design and branding as a narrative tool and a storytelling technique. No one had really done this. Before this, you know, branding and identity work in video games was just for the cover and the title screen that you press start on, basically. Everything else was just then you're in the game, and that kind of like branding world has been left behind. But then another reason why I think it's one of the best is that music, the music aspect. Like they really leaned into the soundtrack, and it was kind of designed from the ground up to embody the music of the UK rave and techno scene. And I think it really kind of did for rave and techno music what Tony Hawk did for punk for a lot of people. It was like, that was a lot of people's first introduction to punk music, which is wild, but I love it. Like everyone remembers that soundtrack. And the company that created Wipeout, Psygnosis, I think they took like a really huge swing by bringing in this company called the Designers Republic to do the branding for it, which that was even a unique thing on its own to bring in that type of branding company. So let's talk through some of just like the history of Wipeout, because I think that's also why I think this brand is so good and unique, because nobody was doing what they did at this time, like this kind of branding. So, history of Wipeout. In the early 90s, there's a company called Psygnosis. They're the game development company. They have this idea for a game, and Psygnosis was in a rough spot after they had a failed game called Pugsy. I don't know if anybody remembers Pugsy, but turns out didn't do great for them. And so Sony swooped in and bought Psygnosis. And so Psygnosis really needed a hit. So they did this big swing on creating this racing game. Their lead game designer apparently was really obsessed with Mario Kart, which, I mean, who isn't? Mario Kart's one of the best racing games ever. But he was also super into the UK rave and techno scene. So he had this idea of like, I want a really fast racing game that embodies that spirit of fast-paced music that you get when you're at the club. And mashing those two worlds together was what created the game. And so he went to this agency called the Designers Republic, who is known for kind of creating mostly branding and album covers. Like, that's what they were actually known for. I'll see, I think I've got some more stuff for them here. So this is actually an amazing post that I found. Someone just went through and collected some of their favorite work by the Designers Republic. And so I'll show you some of this. They've designed tons of album covers that you definitely know. And so they went to this agency, and they're known for creating album covers, crazy branding work. And they, of course, received a ton of pushback from Sony because they were so unorthodox compared to like going to just some other like corporate design, very corporate design brand who just cranks out a logo and that's it. But the Designers Republic really wanted every aspect of the game to be infused with this aesthetic and this like rave attitude. So if anybody in chat has a favorite Designers Republic thing, toss it in chat and maybe we can hunt it down. But okay, let's talk Designers Republic. Designers Republic, one of the coolest agencies to ever exist. They still exist. It's a small crew. They're a UK design agency. I forget exactly where they are. Sheffield? Somebody check me on that. So UK design agency, and they first gained prominence doing really album covers for Warp Records. So anyone who doesn't know, Warp Records was the most influential electronica album or record company of that era. Like, everyone was on them, like Aphex Twin, just tons of, like, so many good folks. And so they were kind of notoriously anti-establishment, anti-authority. They were a group of, I think the main core was 4 people. And they, rather than just nailing down like some clean corporate design niche, they were heavily influenced by that like techno and punk scene in the UK. They pulled in a ton of brutalist and constructivist design aspects, Swiss design, and then they mashed it all together with let's go in here. They mashed it all together with this like poppy Japanese product design and joy and minimalism. And they just created this thing that like now to us feels like, oh yeah, that's what the 90s and 2000s looked like. And it really started with these guys. And they just nailed this perfect style of like maximalism with minimalism and like noise combined with white space. And somehow they're incredible. So yeah, to me, they were like the peak of 90s and early 2000s design. And we all know that's having a big resurgence right now. I think another thing that they did, which was kind of revolutionary for the time, and it was happening in like the contemporary art world and other design worlds, but they really, it really coalesced into something special for them, which was, I think they were at the forefront of remixing and appropriating the design and art of others. So, I mean, here's a great example. I've got it sitting open right here. I love this. One of the brands that they created for Wipeout, which I'll talk about more in a second, was in Wipeout, every single like car had its own company that owned it. And this is from the book about Wipeout stuff, where they created this brand. Oh, let's look at Oricom. And then they just created tons of elements, like stealing like the American flag and using that. They stole the Pepsi logo and reinterpreted that. And oh yeah, Jared, TDR and Attic. Yeah, those are great. Oh man. Let's see if I can find that. I'm gonna do some very quick and dirty Googling because, oh boy, it's being a mess right now. All right, we'll save that for later when we get digging into things. So, they were just really at the forefront of this like very postmodern idea of remixing culture, appropriating elements, and I think that was a really interesting way for them to kind of like add some political commentary and a little bit of cynicism into everything that they do. So, I mean, I'm going to jump back to here again really fast. And I mean, I'll just give you a quick, like, I like this guy's collection of stuff because I think it really captures some of the different styles that they had. Whether it's like super clean minimalism. This is probably one of their most famous, the Aphex Twin single for Window Liquor. I mean, if you're into electronica, you have seen this cover 1,000 times. Like, Aphex Twin is like the defining artist of this era, it feels like. And so they just did tons of really interesting, beautiful, like tech forward minimalist work. And they designed the Warp Records logo, which is also a classic in its own right. So to kind of give you another idea of like how some of their work looks, they did so there was, for anyone who doesn't know, there was a used to be a magazine called Emigre, and it was kind of like the center of the kind of 90s grunge era of design, this like maximalist design style. And they let the Designers Republic do a whole magazine. And so this is every aspect of this in this magazine was designed up by the Designers Republic. And it just has this, oh yeah, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time, yeah. And it's just absolutely packed to the brim with like details, like small little design elements that allude to kind of imagined companies, imagined mascots. You can see some of their work in here. I mean, I was always a Nine Inch Nails kid, so the Nine Inch Nails Sin logo over here is a classic. They even made LFO look good, which I didn't know was possible. Sorry, LFO fans. And so they just had this way of like really structuring space where it feels like it's filled with noise, but somehow kind of like comes out of this history of like Swiss and minimalist design. And I love it. Like everything they design feels like packed with some kind of meaning that's maybe just outside of your understanding. Like here, they're doing like some appropriating, like there's the Atari logo hidden in this one, that huge one, and then they've just turned it into their own thing. And I love this page in here because it gives a really good example of when they design one thing, they actually design a whole suite of stuff to go along with it. And that's kind of how they invent these worlds. So that's like what I think makes Designers Republic really special. And so what they did with Wipeout what they did with Wipeout, I think like what actually set Wipeout apart from a lot of brands and what we can learn from them and like apply to brand building as a whole was that Designers Republic really obviously, whether they like do this in their actual process or not, there's like the idea of like the 5 W's, you know, we all know the 5 W's, who, what, where, when, why, like all these things. Every single thing that they design always feels like they ask that about every single element. And then when you go into Wipeout, they obviously did that. So this is the book that I just showed you, Wipeout Futurism. They obviously, this book's also incredible. It has so many good details. Like they include tons of different examples of like the logo while they're working on it. Just a ton of great elements. But this right here is what I love that they did. So they they invent this world, the whole in the game. It's not just Wipeout. The game is it is the races of the F3600 Anti-Gravity League. And what is the Anti-Gravity League? The Anti-Gravity League is a racing league filled with all these sponsored and endorsed vehicles, just like we have in our real life. But so what do? They're like, oh, they don't just slap logos on the side. They kind of invent whole worlds for each individual brand underneath the Anti-Gravity League. So if this one is Phasar, that you see on screen here, and so not only did they, it's not just about a car. You actually, like, sure, there's differences. Each team car has different stats, but what you're really looking at is like, oh, the Phasar cars are like really fast, or their acceleration is really good. And they invent this whole world where there's like full brand guidelines for each company within this. So these poor guys, it was like, not only did they do the brand for just like one game overall, but then they invented a ton of sub-brands hidden within it for each little part of the world. And it's just like that level of specificity is what made all of this special. It's unbelievable. And then this is like, in this, let's see if I can zoom in on this here a little. Like, this is great. This is even their example then of how like Phaser is up in the top. Oricom is on the bottom left. All of these different, like, here's how the vehicles look. Here's how the colors are applied to vehicles. They went so deep in this, and it really, really shows. So many good details. I say, Fuel in the Tank said, feels like they were the first to really combine corporate identity practice and subversive design. Cyberpunk vibes before that was a thing. Yeah, absolutely. Like, this, it is funny to like call out that it was cyberpunk in this time, because like cyberpunk's been around for a long time, back since Neuromancer, that novel. Great novel, by the way. I just reread it recently. And but we hadn't really fully understood the aesthetic of it fully. Like, there was Blade Runner and all those, but it hadn't fully translated over to like what happens when you just go like almost full cyberpunk in like a very official branded product like this. So so that was like what I think they did really well, was like they always asked with every single element they came up with, like, okay, we need to invent this brand for this team. It's called Phasar. Or it's called Oricom. Okay, and then what about them? Invent a history for them. Invent brand guidelines for them, and all of these things. So they keep going deeper and deeper. And the thing that I think they nailed, and it's like that cyberpunk vibes aspect, is that the Designers Republic didn't make the future clean. The future isn't clean. It's not this like Apple or some generic minimalist tech company aesthetic. They came up with this thing that's noisy, layered, commercialized, and it's like inherently political, because there's so many inventions of story and lore behind every single one. And so it feels like way more Tokyo than Copenhagen, you know? It's like packed to the brim with information. And the thing about doing this too is that like it really aligned with this kind of style. I should say it really aligned with the limitations of the game. Like, Designers Republic and the game devs understood how to use the kind of like low poly, low pixel aesthetic of a PlayStation 1 game as a strength, right? That kind of reinforces that angular futuristic style, which like a lot of people fought against, where it was like, no, like let's try to do round shapes, but they end up just being blocky. Like, no, they were just like, they doubled down on it and like used that, I think, as a really big strength. And so yeah, so they invented all these sponsors and like applied corporation to each one, did that full rebrand. And I think the cool part is just that like every single one felt different. You know, AG Systems is different from Kyrex, which is different from Oricom, which is different from Piranha. And so yeah, like I said earlier, like it made it so the stats didn't matter. The teams are actually what mattered. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm in Wipeout 2097. I'm Team Piranha. Obviously, it's a cool name, and I just liked their cars. And I think another thing that just shows how much like Designers Republic cared about this, um, like a way that shows I think their passion for it was that apparently, and this book again is incredible. There's tons of writing in it, all about the whole process. I could have bored you to death with so many details from it, but it's so good. And they apparently the Designers Republic were so passionate about this, they actually reached out to a bunch of musicians that they'd designed album covers for on behalf of the game devs to encourage them to be on the soundtrack, because like apparently not a lot of people totally got it. Like, why, like, this was such a new thing. Like, the idea of video game soundtracks was not a thing yet, but Designers Republic got it, and so they asked tons of people that they got, and so that's how they got like all these amazing bands on this soundtrack. So, all right, uh who are some favorite techno bands? Techno bands, it sounds weird. Techno artists from that era for anybody. I mean, I was always a Prodigy kid, just because it was like, had the right aggression. Like, I always loved Prodigy, and I was a big Orbital fan. And I think those both show up on the original soundtrack. I should have tossed a link in below for the soundtracks. Go hunt down the soundtracks, they're great. So yeah, let me know fave. Oh, Underworld guy. Yeah, totally. I loved Underworld. Underworld was great. It was so funny. I mean, I grew up in when that would have been late late when I was getting into it, like mid late 90s, early 2000s, when I was getting in a techno scene. I like lived in rural Washington state, and so it was like the most foreign crazy thing that I was into, this world of electronica. And then it got me, like, I was always into industrial, and so all those things kind of melded, but it felt like I was on another planet listening to this music, where I was living, it was everyone listening to like classic rock and country music, and I was into metal, industrial, and electronica. Oh, LTJ, yeah. I don't know if LTJ showed up on anything for the Wipeout soundtracks. Oh yeah, Hackers movie is right there in the trenches with this game's design ethos. Lots of the same artists in both soundtracks. Absolutely. We just went and saw Hackers, my wife and I, in the theater. Oh, I was gonna say just, it was probably 2 years ago, but it was so good. It's still just like an absolute classic. Crash and burn. Okay, so we talked about it a bunch. This aspect of Wipeout inventing all of these different brands, and kind of how that created this whole world. Yes, hack the planet. Hell yeah. Okay, so I think the most unique part about their brand building, like, we talked about world building a lot last week, and how a lot of corporations have done that. And like, my favorite example is always McDonald's, because I just love their brand building. I love that they invented this whole imaginary world of mascots that they don't use as much anymore, which is so foolish of them. But I think they were kind of masters of it. And what Designers Republic did with Wipeout was do that, but through the lens of like corporate sponsorship and corporate branding. So the term that's like this has come to be called is the idea of subvertising. So subvertising is when you create parodies or spoofs or just fake, cynical versions of corporate and political sponsors or brands. And it's usually used as a criticism or some kind of attempt to disrupt and upend the meaning of that corporation. It's like done in a lot of like protest work. And that whole idea of subvertising is really the root of everything that Designers Republic does, and the whole Wipeout aesthetic. It's just like keep going deeper, keep reinterpreting, keep remixing. And this was a wild idea for design in the 90s. Like this was still at the maybe like height of like postmodernism, when everything was really starting to mix and form, maybe turning into something else. I don't know what postmodernism we're in anymore. But they went into it with such specificity that the invented world became real just because it's packed with all this imaginary advertising. And one of the things that I love about that was then, oh, it probably got shown in here somewhere. I've still got a lot of racing going on in here. You want to just keep watching some Wipeout racing while we're talking. This is great. God, even just the UI of this, it looks so crazy. But so they kind of like had this whole invented world, and the reason why, oh, actually, here's one of my favorite examples of this. When in Wipeout 2097, the sequel, the first Wipeout did insanely well, way better than I expected. And then they got real brands on it. So where you see right here, improved reaction time, Red Bull. So then you get this amazing mix of real sponsorship slammed next to fake sponsorships. And it just like, it's the one time where I feel like real company endorsements and sponsorships is great. So you get all of this like mix of reality with fantasy, and it really then helps us envision ourselves in this world, because it starts resembling this hyper-realist version of the capitalist hellscape we already live in. So that's how the sci-fi fantasy world became believable, was just keep going deeper, keep adding details, and they just built the whole universe with this method. And I don't know, we're still enamored with it now because of its specificity. There's so many great streams of stuff in here. Like this is just a YouTube video of just all the intro videos from each one. And just really, truly, truly beautiful thing. Also, when you think about the fact that they were making this in, 95, 96, and that it, like, I can't even imagine how much of a nightmare it would have been to make any of this work. N2O, Nitrous Oxide is sort of a cousin to this game. Absolute banger soundtrack and graphics. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. There was kind of an era of like racing games where they kind of got it after this. Like, I don't know. Let me know what your favorite racing games were of this era. Like, I mean, there was like, after this, there was, the big ones like Gran Turismo, Forza. Those racing games were awesome. Or there was a lot of rally racing games. Those games are cool, but they were just like hyper realist, like actually realism. And those just kind of never clicked for me. There's certain levels that were so visually chaotic they were hard to play on a crappy TV. Oh yeah, playing this on my like 13-inch CRT in my bedroom as a kid was not great. I used to think they looked so cool. Oh yeah, an archivist, grew up on Rush 2049. Yeah, awesome. I mean, I was a huge Ridge Racer fan, which Ridge Racer also had some of this aesthetic, not quite as extreme. But Ridge Racer also had like this kind of like very unique, kind of a little bit more like Japanese anime influenced aesthetic to it. And I thought it was great. I still hear the way they say Ridge Racer in my head all the time. Oh man, sorry, I'm just gonna be distracted just watching all this. I love the whole look of this thing. Great. So, okay, so what did we got to pull from all this stuff? I think, God, you even get the Designers Republic logo in here. Great. So, oh, obscure one on Saturn was High Velocity. I barely remember that one. Okay, let's look up high velocity really fast. I forgot about that. Oh, it looked good. Here, let me share my screen here with it. Like, a little more realistic, but just a great. I love that there's been a huge resurgence of low poly, like low resolution texture game design that's been happening lately. Like, it's probably going to wear out its welcome real soon, but when it's done well, it looks incredible. It's probably really friendly to game devs. Of what's the the famous tweet or quote? Somebody drop a link to it in the chat if you remember. That's the like, I want uglier games that cost less money and take less time, whatever that tweet is. I think that's why that low poly work is really coming back again. Okay, so I guess what did we learn from all this stuff? It was really fun to go back through this because I mean, I loved Wipeout, and my friend bought me this book for my birthday recently. So it was just a really fun dive to go back into that world and kind of remember what made it special. And it kind of was like integrated with my old love for electronica and things like that. But I think, oh yeah, Jared said, build a world, not a moment. Good. Okay, if you're putting that in chat, we're done. Call it for the day. Build a world, not a moment. Nailed it. I think that's it. I mean, that is such a big one, is that like, so especially in our world of branding now, like it's so just screaming for like tiny little whispers of your attention, that I think a lot of brands are kind of like losing themselves when they're trying to just scream for that split second of attention rather than developing their own brand. And it just breaks my heart to see that, because I think that's where the real beautiful work happens, is when you just go deep. So I mean, like that's definitely something we can pull from this, is just like, go a level deeper. Anytime you're approached with anything, just ask why. Like, don't be afraid when you're doing brand building work. Don't be afraid to be the annoying child who asks why over and over and over again. Like, it'll help you create more depth, more story, and just more art to put into that world. I mean, that's why the Wipeout world is so good, is because like Designers Republic kept asking why. Why does this sponsorship exist? Why does this team exist? Go deeper, create a brand, create a full brand guidelines for them. And I think the other thing too is just that like most brands kind of choose one lane. And oh yeah, there was no story or characters in Wipeout, but the whole world felt alive solely through branding and details. Yeah. Yeah, that was like, it's all emergent narrative. I didn't really talk about it today, but that was like the big thing out of world building that we talked about last time, was that like, don't just fill it with story and expository language. Like, Wipeout is told only through its branding and through the design aesthetic in it. It's all emergent narrative. You discover it, you get the vibes of it after playing it, and it is just so smart and actually like nuanced in a way. Despite its noisy aesthetic, it has some nuance that like no other games were doing at that time. Yeah, I was gonna say, like most brands kind of also just tend to choose one lane, and I'm guilty of doing this. Like, it's really simple to like guide a brand towards like, you go in this one direction, you do this one thing, keep doing that, you should be successful. But I think there's something special happens when you can kind of like mash a couple worlds that are really disparate together. You get this like racing combined with this UK rave scene, and it creates this collision of, I don't know, originality and just a really distinct perspective. Like, when it's like the same thing where it's like, you know, you want to get inspired as a designer or you want to get inspired as an artist, don't look at more art. Go take a break. Go discover something else. Go read a book. Go like watch a movie. Go experience life and bring that knowledge back and mash it into your work. And it will become better, and you'll have a distinct perspective that isn't just defined by what everyone else is doing in that world. And I think we're definitely back in this moment right now, given the like explosion of 2000s design aesthetic. of just like, think about how we can appropriate imagery, you know, steal equity from other corporations and from other art, and use that as a way to kind of create emergent meaning within a brand. You know, they did that with, like I mentioned earlier, like there was like the Pepsi logo shows up in things in Wipeout. The US flag shows up in some of those design elements. They're all things that we have a natural understanding and established history with. So then try twisting it and it becomes almost like political commentary. I think too, of like the same thing with like most brands choosing one lane. Like most brands tend to avoid or remove tension. But what that means to me is that tension is then a viable option. Like you can put two things together and make them butt heads, and that can actually create brand meaning right there. And so, I mean, that gets back to the whole idea of this whole live show I like doing, is that like Wipeout was a huge surprise, massive success, and it wasn't like Wipeout wasn't a massive success because it was designed for everyone. Like, it was deeply, deeply specific. It was designed for creating hardcore fans who got the aesthetic, who understood the narrative. And I think this is kind of what every good brand world does, or should do, because the more specificity, the more your fans can see themselves inside that world, and the more specificity, or the more specific you get, the more you create a world that people actually want to belong into, the more you can create a world that people can see themselves in. And so I think that's the real art here of all of this, is just like, I think we often, I mean, this is the classic, like, you design for everyone, design for no one. And it's always a really nice reminder, and it's fun when you get to pull it back from a 1995 racing game, that the more specific you get, it feels absurd at times, but someone sees that and somehow people start seeing themselves inside that world. And that's why I love this stuff. It's so great. Here's another for you you Vector Heart for you Vector Heart Designers Republic nerds out there. I had no idea they have this website here that I found. I don't know why it keeps going to that. Something with my hotkeys are messed up right now. So apparently Designers Republic has this website called divinerights.co.uk, where you can actually go on here and buy a bunch of archives of like their old flyers. So I'm gonna have to pick up some stuff from here. You know, like you've got some stuff from Autech or even Boards of Canada, and just tons of flyers. Apparently this one's sold out, which is a bummer. But you can get all of these different flyers that they have. Good, clean, simple stuff. I think this is the one. This is so great. And see, this is another great example. Top right, obviously stealing some very like Russian constructivism vibes here. So apparently if you want a little piece of Designers Republic history in your own house, you can buy it on here. You can get seven flyers for $135. Who's got some money to spend? Yeah, there's so much great stuff on here. It's so funny because like my personal aesthetic comes from more like purely like grid oriented Swiss design kind of background. And it's always so impressive to me. Like, I love this aesthetic. I can't create it. Like, if a client came to me and was like, we need it to look like this, I would not be able to do it. I could maybe lead the charge on it, but this is like, I feel like you have to find this type of designer specifically, because it's just like the level of expressiveness in it. I can't get there. I'm too uptight. So go on here, buy some stuff. And I don't know exactly the status of Designers Republic these days. Like they're still posting on Instagram. They gave some tease about 40 years of divine rights. Maybe that's the, I don't know if that's the shop I would just showed you, but they're still active. They're one of their founders, Ian Anderson, is still out there causing trouble. I think he still occasionally does interviews and talks. But I mean, it's been around for 40 years, so good on them for being absolute legends. And somehow I mean, the fact that you could keep any agency alive, like Parliament, we've been around for about 20 years now, and that's an anomaly. The thought that you could hit 40 is just insane. I don't know how any agency lasts that long, but they've always done great work. So all right, I mean, I think that kind of hits, I think, everything I wanted to hit with Wipeout. I think that's I think my favorite part of all of this is that idea of like subvertising, where I mean, it's literally, it's a portmanteau, I think, of like subversive advertising, where like you always invent this world and go a little bit deeper. That's the stuff that I think, like, that's the part that I'm like, I need to remind myself with everything, that like always go that level deeper, invent a little world. I've been talking about mascots lately with clients, and I think we're entering an era where mascots are going to be coming back for brands, given like the way we're feeling about AI and a need to rehumanize corporations. I think we're going to be probably getting more mascots, and I was like, that just is the reminder to me, like, really invent that mascot's world, go deeper in it, give them a whole backstory, give them a name, all of those things. Like, don't just make it like simple illustration that goes on like a generic tech website. Oh, it is. This someplace said, Ian is still doing stuff, and Michael C. Place is doing a version of the TDR look, but much more refined now. Oh, I'll have to look that up. I haven't seen any of his stuff. Is he just doing it? Do you know, is he doing it under his own name, or does he have like his own agency? Oh, here, let's see what I can find over here. Studio Build. Oh, whoa. Okay, I had no idea that Studio Build was him. That's hilarious. And his wife, huh? That's crazy. Okay. Well, here, I'll throw it up on the screen here so everyone can see what I'm looking at. This is Studio Build. Studio.build. I know I follow him on everything, and I just somehow I totally missed that it was him. Their work is great. Oh, this demo stuff is so good. Let's look at this. Sorry, we're just going design hunting now. Oh yeah, this is the look. Radical realism. It's funny, there's been so many, like, there's been a lot of discussion, you know, since I've talked some about that video game marathon that I'm obsessed with too. There's been a lot of discussion about like, what do you really call some of this aesthetic? I know like the guy who was the main art director on Marathon just started calling it graphic realism, which I kind of like, because it almost, I mean, I'd almost call it like graphic hyperrealism if I was getting really nerdy about it. But that's I'm not a linguist, so I don't know. Yeah, this stuff is great. All the little crosses in ASCII style. All right, this is good. Jared, thanks for reminding me of this. This is good. All right, I'm gonna be digging into this the rest of the day. I've got so much work to do. I'm so behind. I was kind of out the last few days of work because unfortunately my wife's grandpa died, and so it's been a lot of family time. So this is like a frantically put together live stream today, and so I'm so behind on all work, but I'm gonna get a little distracted digging into this today. God, this stuff's great. Also, there's good photography in these. I definitely I struggle with like the new era of portfolio design. Like, you know, there's like portfolios for agencies and designers especially go through kind of like trends and cycles. I really struggle with the like press books down directly onto the scanner and scan them look. It just like I still just struggle with it so bad because like I want to see like the book in 3D space and flattened out like that. Always is really a struggle for me, but maybe just because I'm old and I don't get it. That's always a possibility. Oh yeah, you can see the TDR DNA for sure. So cool. All right. I'm gonna get into it. Oh yeah, send me some links. I've also heard the term highlighter punk thrown around for marathon. Oh, highlighter punk is great. I love that. Okay, I'm gonna write that down. This is me writing things down, old school style. I wanna look up. Maybe this is another stream in the future is discussion of things like this of like what do you call highlighter punk and all of these different things. But all right, I mean I think that's it for the day. We are almost at 1 o'clock my time. I guess I gotta go do some real work again. You know, do what Parliament actually pays me for here. Yeah, Ryan, fueling the tank. Thanks for everyone. This was great. Thanks for sharing awesome stuff. Let's all go play some racing games, or in my case, I'll probably be on Marathon tonight. So if anybody wants to try out some Marathon and experience highlighter punk in the flesh, hit me up. Next week, I don't exactly, since I was so behind this week with everything, I have no idea what we're going to talk about next week, which I know is not helpful. But one thing that's on my list that I've been thinking, and I think it would relate to this really well, is I've just had this idea of like how a lot of brands are really afraid to be ugly or afraid to be like interesting in that kind of absurdist way. And I think that can be a problem sometimes and can kind of strip a lot of brands from meaning. So I'm going to maybe dig into that here soon. So maybe that'll be next week. So we'll talk about like why brands are afraid to be ugly and maybe some brands that do it right. So thanks for another great stream, y'all. That was awesome. I'm super excited about Wipeout and that whole vibe. I'm gonna go read the rest of this book and have a good rest of the day.